Today on Parts Hold, we have another amazing guest. We've got John Polt. He is from the Project Parts, fellow podcaster. I would call him a parts guru for sure. And he's going to come and he's going to talk a lot about his system and his experiences. We're also going to discuss horrible experiences with baseball teams. And finally, we're going to have a little bit of a closure discussion on Cliff, his cats, and what his new coach name is going to be. All that and more today on Parts Hold. John, how are you today?
Hey, I'm doing good. How you guys doing?
Awesome. We've been talking about this podcast for a little while. We were really excited to get to hang out with you and meet you, and we're super grateful for what you're doing to the industry right now. And I think that joining forces is literally going to be, it's like the Emperor and Darth Vader getting together, pretty much.
Which one are we?
He can pick.
Could I be
Chewbacca?
I wanted to be like Luke Skywalker, but then I feel like I would have this weird thing that I don't know which side to pick.
Yeah. I want you to be like...
Chewbacca could be a better one, though.
I'll be Princess Leia. Can I be Princess Leia?
Yes, you may.
But we have to do a test with the bun.
Yes. Nice. No, it's an honor to be here. I'm incredibly honored that you guys are having me on. Parts is a big passion of mine, and it's cool to see other people doing part-specific stuff. So this is exciting for me. I'm honored to be here.
Yeah, it's one of those things, and this was we have the same kind of passion. It's funny that we've started to get some feedback from our videos and everything like that. We had somebody that said, like the show, hate the name, and I was going to kind of explain that, and I was just also kind of curious what you think of why we named the show Parts Hold. I mean, obviously everybody kind of knows that in the 90s that was like the stereotypical greeting that a parts department would give somebody. They'd say Parts Hold and then hang the thing up, and then maybe they come back. But we kind of took that spin on it as we want to take the same phrase and really kind of have the parts department looking at themselves like they're the ones holding the dealership up. And that's kind of why we kept the name, is because I think that we can put a new spin on an old term. And I was just curious what your thoughts. Do you think that makes sense?
That's a different take on it. Yeah, absolutely. I think, the Parts Hold, I can kind of see, I saw some of the comments and people are saying like, oh, that's a service term. That's how service looks at parts and that kind of thing. And, I can understand that. But what you just said makes total sense, But that's something that maybe people should know more about is in that name. Parts Hold is, because, I think there is that service and parts battle that's always going on.
Yeah.
Well, there's definitely a thing too of hang on a second, we haven't left you out. So that Parts Hold is just wait a second too. Like they need to be a part of this thing too, and we're valuable, and we are a big key to making the dealership go around.
Yeah, that reminds me. I mean, and really the way that people interpret Parts Hold, it is a little bit of a problem. Which reminds me, I went to a bookstore the other day, and I found a book. It said how to solve 50% of your problems. So I bought 2 copies.
I got to tell you, Christian, my kids love the joke about how many eyes, or the fish eyes joke.
Oh my gosh. That's the best one.
That was a killer with my kids. I loved it. It was awesome.
So every time, this is so great. But even now, like if I went, Chris is next door. He's right behind us. And if I went in there and I talked to him about that joke, he'd get mad again. Like it was just the joke that it was like he doesn't, even if he doesn't want to get it, he doesn't like it. The fact that the words were uttered out of my mouth. But by far, John, my favorite joke to tell since I've started doing all this stuff was that particular joke.
My kids loved it, so it was a hit.
That's hilarious.
So funny.
Oh my gosh.
All right, well let's dig in a little bit. So really just kind of first as we get started, I'd love to hear a little bit about your story. Tell us about yourself, where you got to where you're at now, and at the end of it, maybe kind of like what was your motivation for, we'll probably get into this a little bit, but what some people probably don't know is that John spends a ton of time and energy putting all the content that he is together. It's not like you turn on a camera and shoot a 5-minute video. Like there's so much more that goes into it than that. So I'd love to hear just kind of your backstory and then like that thing that motivated you to start making the great videos that you're making.
I've been in automotive now 20 years, and I started out as a porter and became a technician. Then I moved into parts and then became an assistant parts manager, then a parts manager. I was a parts and service director for 3 years. Lost a few years of my life doing that, so I moved back to parts. And parts is my wheelhouse. It's what I feel like I'm good at and have had success with. So I've been doing the parts manager thing for a while now. And the content just kind of came as, there's parts managers out there that really need help. There's very little training. Maybe a little bit from the manufacturer, but that's it. And, you're kind of typically taken over for somebody else who may or may not have been doing it the right way. You're lucky to have a mentor in this business. I was lucky enough to have a mentor for several years and learned a lot from him. But in terms of people starting out fresh, there's nothing out there. I mean, it's like what you guys are doing and what I'm trying to do. It's, you take to Google or YouTube and, nobody talks about how to maintain gross profit percentage or especially specific to a car dealership, So the whole goal was just to kind of help and create a resource for people to have and to learn from.
Well, you're certainly opening up conversation, which I absolutely love off of your channel, and the value that you have there is tremendous. And then I think you hit on another thing that we've talked about prior, is that tribal thing where things are just left because that's the way they always have been. And another portion of that you brushed on there that I love is the fact the mentor. There's a lot of people that are getting out of this business, retiring because they've been in it a very, very long time, and they still have a lot of value. And I think the more that they can teach us, the younger people coming into it, the better off we are. And there's so much we can learn from them. Because in the end, the old phrase, parts is parts, it hasn't completely changed, right? It's still the same thing. So I do think there's a lot of value there.
There's another thing too, is like you said, there's a lot of people leaving the business and there's not a whole lot of people coming in. I fell into it. I don't know about you guys, but I just happened to fall into it. I was washing cars one day and then 20 years later, I'm managing it.
Like that.
So it's that kind of thing, but a lot of people aren't doing this. A lot of people, younger people especially, aren't getting into this. And that's if I have an opportunity to hire somebody who is younger and moldable, that's gold, because there's so many people getting out and not a lot of people getting in.
The thing for me that it's been for me is it's afforded me a life, and it's been a very, very good life, right? Because I think people look at, specifically, I think they shun parts because they don't know. And then much like you, we get into it, but I've had a good life and done a lot of good things because of this business, and it's been very, very good to me.
Absolutely. And that's the thing too. I want to give back. There's a big part of me that does all this editing and does all the videos and everything, and I just want to give back because same thing, have afforded a very nice lifestyle and beautiful family, and I owe a lot to this field, and to be able to give back is awesome. Yeah,
it's cool.
That's great. That's and then just for clarity's sake, are you a cat person or a dog person?
I'm a dog person. I'm sorry, Cliff.
Yeah.
Well, so I'm going to have some people on here that are going to help me and defend me, okay? Because I'm not strictly a dog person, but you've got to understand that dogs they're affectionate towards everyone. Cats, you've got to earn the trust. Like, think about that for a second. You have to earn their trust.
None of that sounds pet-like to me. I don't know. I've got a nickname that I'm going to test for Cliff. I'm just John. I'm going to watch your reaction. I've done some training on actually reading people's human response and whether or not they genuinely like something. I believe that Cliff's new name should be Coach Kitten.
Meow.
Yeah. So his response, his blink rate actually decreased. His pupils dilated. Like he was super interested in that. Yeah. So I think that's pretty much how that's going to go from now
John,
on.
you know, as parts people, you and I, and as East Coast people, I was hoping that you were going to be on my side, but I feel that you're not.
All he has to say to that is bow wow.
The name is better than Coach Whiskers. I got to tell you, that's
Coach Whiskers.
Oh no, I'm sorry, Cliff. I'm sorry.
Hey, it's all good,
Coach
man.
Whiskers.
Hey, listen, I'm secure. I love them.
It's so much better than Coach Kitten.
And I'm thinking about an individual. When an individual watches this episode, I got a feeling that our phone's going to blow up.
Yeah, like with the two people that have cats are going to be really upset.
No, yeah. Well,
it's so fun.
It's such a
and then so just to kind of catch the audience up, where do you live?
Cleveland, Ohio, suburb named Strongsville, Ohio. That's where I grew up and lived for most of my life.
So Indians fan, Browns fan, that kind of thing?
And not a Guardians fan, but an Indians fan. But
yeah. Oh, that's right. I have to change the name. I still call them the Redskins too. Like I'm just waiting for the politically correct police to come get me. But
watch the comments that happen. They'll be blowing up now.
But, somebody's triggered.
Yeah. But as an Indians fan, so I can tell you, so I'm a Cubs fan, lifelong Cubs fan, and I think Indians fan and Cubs fans have shared the same plight. Like, and this year's no exception to where I believe that the Indians team, we'll call them the Guardians just because that's what their name really is, but the Indians, I feel like they grabbed your heart, they pumped it a couple of times to make you feel really good, and then they literally like totally Mortal Kombated the thing out of your body. But my condolences for what was a beautiful season turned the wrong way.
That turned fast. I know.
Oh, that series, I swear they were gonna win, hands down. But.
Hey, not to switch gears from baseball to football, but as a Carolina Panthers fan, I'm wondering, do you want your quarterback back?
No, I think we're good.
Okay.
I don't know. Yeah.
So that's not working out?
Not for Carolina.
Who could have predicted that outside of Cleveland? Totally understand that. So, all right, let's get back to it. I'm so sorry I've distracted everyone. But what do you think the biggest fault that most parts managers aren't considering? What do you think is the thing that they're maybe they're making an assumption that they shouldn't, or something that's just a gross miscalculation?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think parts managers, we kind of have a tendency to really put blinders on to our department. Our job is to manage our inventory, manage our people, manage our wholesale accounts. So it's easy to just get consumed in your own department. But something that I do feel, and I'm guilty of it as well, is realizing that your department is a much smaller piece to a much bigger machine. And that's fixed ops. And that's kind of a big deal to understand that as a parts department, you can affect CSI, you can affect the service advisors, you affect the technicians, you affect that customer satisfaction. And that's a huge deal. And something that I think is sometimes overlooked in terms of parts management, because, and no fault to anybody, it's just, your job, your pay is based on, what you do in your department. So, but I think, having that in the forefront of your head that, hey, I can affect a customer's experience, you got to kind of make decisions with that in mind. Yeah. But I think that is something that, and again, I'm guilty of it myself, is just kind of overlooking that.
Well, I feel like I know when I was sitting in the chair that I felt like that I had my own deal. I was, by myself. I was stuck there. The particular store that I worked at, the parts department was on the outside of the building. So we were separate from being on the inside like most stores are. So we kind of had our own deal. So in my mind, I was running my own business and didn't think about that enough. So I do appreciate that, because we get trapped up in doing whatever. There's 1,000 things you're doing during the day and 1,000 things that you're looking at. So I love it. Yeah.
You get buried in your own department, and it's hard to really see past your department. But, I think something that is important is just understanding that, you got to work with service, you got to work with sales, you got to work with everybody. And it's, just realizing that your department is just a part of a much bigger.
And certainly no dig to you because of your background, but the techs are annoying from the parts side of it.
Yeah, but I would contend for sure that I bet John probably is going to lead us into our next question. Yeah. But I'm going to guess that John probably had a different kind of empathy for the techs.
So that's exactly what
so I think that's a cool path, the porter tech, then to the parts department. Like you could make a case. I think about it a lot, the cross training thing. So for my background, I spent 7 years in sales, and so I went from sales to service, but I had a different understanding, and I could even contend, I think it would be great, and it'd be a lot of work and a lot of change in the industry, but how much value would it be if you have someone, in order for them to be a manager candidate in any department, that they'd have to spend time in all three? Like you'd have to spend some time in sales and service and then parts, and then you lock into whatever department is actually going to be yours. But if you don't have that see it through the different lens thing, you're not as strong of a leader. Because otherwise you're sitting there pointing fingers instead of taking responsibility.
Well, there's a particular business that we were talking about earlier today that I find fascinating in their business model, in that you can go in and one day a person's working at the register, and the next week they're filling the eggs, and the next week they're filling this area, but they're constantly moving the employees around. I love that idea because I think from a parts manager standpoint, to sit in the service advisor's shoes for a little bit, and you hit on it a minute ago with being the fixed ops director, and it's painful to some degree. And you don't realize how much what you do affects everything. I was never a technician, so I can't speak from that, but I do understand the production side of it and what I did to affect that, and how I could support that as a parts manager.
Absolutely.
And parts advisor.
It's huge. I mean, I was a decent service manager, parts service director, only because I had that parts experience. So I worked really well with my parts department, and I think in my experience, my parts department and my service department worked so well together because I was able to tear down that wall, because I knew what it was like to be on parts, and then, being in service, how much you got to work together. And that's a huge thing. If I hadn't had that experience, if I went from washing a car to being a service manager, I would have a totally different outlook on parts. But having been there and done it and done a little bit of everything, that is huge. And that is something that dealerships should really consider, is, multi-training and inter-department training, because same thing with service advisors. They don't understand what parts is doing. And if a parts counter guy has never been a service advisor, you're butting heads, and you don't understand why.
No, that's good. That could be a whole nother episode of how to cross train, and I mean just the whole thing. I think it's a big topic. That's a good one.
Yeah, it would take the dealer body as a whole, them have to really kind of double down on that as opposed to just so many dealerships, they're like, oh, we need training, but when it comes down to it, I mean, this has happened to us a ton of times. It's like, we'll be up and we'll be like, okay, we're gonna come in, we're gonna train your people, and then all of a sudden when we're in there training people, they're too busy to stop. And it's interesting, we say we want it, but then when the time comes, we don't always follow through on that. So thinking back, as you look over your parts career, are there a couple of things that you do that you would say are probably different than other parts managers, that kind of like, I like to use the superpower phrase kind of, is because I've found that every really, really good leader has that edge. What would you say that yours has been?
I would say just managing people. I think I have a good hold on just managing a group of people, and keeping. I'm a firm believer. A happy employee is a productive employee, and I've worked with people, managers who just yell at everybody and scream and shout, pound their fists and throw desks, and it's like, are you really getting the best out of everybody? And something that I've just always prided myself on. I take care of my employees. I let them know how much they mean. We are able to do what we do because of the people that we have on our teams. And, building a good group of people, making sure everybody's doing what they're supposed to be doing and playing to their strengths, similar to like a coach, a baseball coach or a football coach. It's just making sure everybody's doing, what they do best and pulling in the same direction towards a common goal. I think that's a huge deal. And sometimes that's not always the case.
Yeah. Do you? It's funny. Cliff and I were talking about this really, really early this morning. But so we've both shifted in our hiring. I would say over the last 3, 4, 5 years. Do you find yourself hiring people that you actually like?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I have to like them, but if somebody has really good background and seems like they're a good fit, but I don't like them, I mean, I might still give them a shot because ultimately it's about the team. But I feel like also if I don't like them, I don't know that my people are going to like them.
So that's exactly how I feel. I also would tell you that my experience is that when I've hired people that I didn't like, and it's a my fault thing, it's not a them thing. When I didn't like them, I had it in my head, and then I would say I probably never gave them a fair shake on top of it, right? So I've kind of shifted over to this, like I only hire people that I really, really like. And it's helped me to build, like, I feel like I'm bragging a little bit, but I feel like I've got the best team that has ever been assembled in like Chris Collins history. Like, it's really, really freaking good. And it happens because, like, and Chris started this, is that he also is kind of that on that, like, he only wants to hire people that he likes. And I've found that like you said, if I like somebody, there's a good chance that the client's going to like somebody. There's a good chance that the coworkers are going to like somebody. And at the end of the day, every position, whether it's parts or service or whatever, like there's a customer in that recipe somewhere, and it's all about how do they interact with other humans.
And how they fit into the team is key too.
Yeah.
And I think evaluating them as a team player, like, are they going to be a part of the team? Going back to what we just had, that we affect everything else. Do I have a good team member that's going to be willing to do everything for the whole team?
Yep.
I love it.
And then the backside of that is that, at the end of the day, I'm not hiring somebody that I have to make happy. Because when's the last time you made someone else happy?
Difficult to.
I don't think it happens. I think that's an internal choice on their end, and what happens at the end of the day is, even if you make someone happy, you make yourself miserable.
And if I bring them in and they're miserable, then they make my whole team miserable. They spread throughout everybody, and then I have to restructure everything after that person leaves. Like, there's a whole thing to that.
Yeah.
And they run my customers off, my wholesale customers, whatever.
You can do a lot of damage by bringing in somebody who maybe is very qualified, but is not a pleasant person, because that's going to disrupt the entire operation. And like you said, there's a customer in there somewhere, and that's going to really affect everything. And if you got one person who's a cancer, and it's really hard to make them happy, it's hard to keep the team happy, especially if they're outwardly spewing all the negativity, like some people do. But it's tough. That's a tough call. And it's especially now in 2022 with the hiring, the pool that's out there, it's difficult. That's a tough call.
It's a pretty shallow end.
It can be.
I said the pool's a pretty shallow end.
Yeah, they are especially at least where I'm at. I mean, trying to find a driver, or, service trying to find a porter. I mean, it's so hard all of a sudden. And, everybody's hiring for top dollar. I mean, what I was making as a porter, is not even close to what, porters are making now. It's
a big difference. I think that's kind of the end of that conversation is if a candidate's best trait is that they're good with a DMS, you should probably think twice, right? All right. So thinking about your tenure as a parts manager, and I'm going to guess you probably had a little bit of a different road because you actually, you were parts and service director from time to time. How do you handle misunderstandings between the two departments? Have you got kind of a recipe that makes that work?
Communication, and I think the communication really has to come from parts. I think parts has a big responsibility for communicating to service, special order parts, when they come in, how long they've been here, really following up. Because I know as a service department, it's so easy. You're dealing with what's in front of your face. You're more reactive, I think, sometimes in service than proactive. And it's, so you got a customer screaming in front of your face. You're not thinking about that other car that's, on a lift that has a special order part in service. I get that. But it's on the parts side to remind them, hey, I still have this part in the back. I still have this, and just reminding them and being very over communicating, I think, is important to, breaking down that wall. And I do feel like a lot of that has to come from parts, just to help, again, just support the service department that, hey, this part's still here, and they're like, oh God, thank you. That customer could have been really mad if I didn't get that in, but ultimately, just being very communicative. That's not a word.
No, but you just made it up. It's
really close.
It's probably something from Ohio.
I believe it's communicative. There's an extra CA in there, I think. It's communicative.
I think I think what you're talking about, though, is going back to that customer experience. Like, you're controlling the customer experience by letting them know the special order part's there and letting them know when it arrived and reminding them in case they forgot. I think that's great.
Yeah, I wrote down that parts kind of has to lead in the communication. Yeah. I've never looked at it like that.
Well, so that's really cool. Are you calling, do you hold meetings with your service advisors or your service manager?
No, we don't. We have like an actual, just an Excel spreadsheet that has every special order on it that has come in, how long it's been here, extremely detailed. We give that to the service department every day, and my assistant manager, Nick, he's, kind of leads that in giving that to the advisors, the service manager, myself. So we're all on the same page. And again, service it can be very crazy. So sometimes, service advisors will still come back and say, hey, is this part here? And it's like, yeah, it's on the list that we give you every day, but it's here. And it's like, but, I think, just having that process and being able to have that communication it's crucial, because I've been at other places where, a special order part comes in and throw it on the shelf and, that's it, and then you just kind of wait until somebody gets really mad.
And it's usually a great business strategy, right?
And it's usually the parts manager, because now I've got to use my return allowance to return it.
But I'm to blame. Or we wait till the latest possible time. We can't return it because it's been too long, like the return window closed and all that stuff. I mean, so many other ways to run it.
How about think about the fact that sometimes a parts manager, because I was guilty of it, I'm going to call myself out, return the part intentionally and realize what kind of chaos that created, right? I mean, it's happened. Yeah. I've got control. I'm going to return this part, and they're going to come looking for it the next day. And it is inevitable that they come looking for it the next day. There might be something there.
It's exactly that. It's as soon as you send it back, it's like that day they come back. Where's that part?
Always. It's always that case.
It's on the truck that just left down the road. You might want to go run and go grab it right quick. That's awesome.
Hilarious. I love it. All right, so kind of in closing, John, tell us a little bit more about how do we find your podcast?
Yeah, so the podcast is it's actually Project Parts, and it's with me and my assistant manager, Nick, and we talk about things that we wish we knew going into parts, going into management specifically. And, furthermore, Project Parts, we want to be a resource for parts managers coming up, and just letting people know that, hey, we got your back. There's somewhere you can go to actually learn this stuff. And whether it's through an email, text message, whatever, like, we're here for you guys. And, I think that's a big deal. I wish I had that coming up. So to be able to provide that means a lot to us. And yeah, it's just, just talking about parts because it's both what we're passionate about.
Yeah, I think that for us to start to attract, higher quality talent into the parts room, we've got to do stuff like this to make it a little bit sexy. It's definitely not the sexiest part of the dealership, but it can be if we have these conversations.
I personally take a little bit of offense to that.
Well,
John, well.
I mean, in the eyes of everybody, I mean,
Yeah.
I get it. Yeah, I mean, parts is parts over there. What, I don't know what they do back there. They're weird, but like, I don't know. I know I can relate to like, hey, we're cool people. We're hip. We can do cool stuff.
They're definitely like they're the department that you'd most likely go want to have a beer with, I think, because you want to see them let loose and whatnot. But at the end of the day, parts is about speed and execution. When you think about it, like Bruce Lee was really, really fast, but his brother suddenly was way faster.
You, John.
It took me a minute, but I got it.
I don't see you making any notes on these to use later on, but you're welcome probably to use some of those if you'd like.
To refer back to the tape, but yeah.
Like an instant replay. That's great.
That's awesome.
Well, I tell you what, this has been a lot of fun. So I appreciate your time and super responsive, and this was cool. I would love to say that maybe we could have you on again in the future as we kind of keep going down this journey together, and we wish you the absolute best of success, and don't be a stranger.
No, I keep putting out the good content, and the stuff on YouTube's awesome. The quick 6-minute videos are fantastic. So I love it, man. Great stuff.
Really appreciate it.
Love it. Well, that's going to do it for today on Parts Hold.
Here to fill the order.